Well, hello there. Get comfortable here. So this video is going to be quite a bit different than my other videos. It's not going to be edited. I have my notes here so I don't forget to tell you certain things. But basically, I just wanted to take a few minutes to pop in and kind of formally introduce myself, I guess. Also to let you know what the inspiration is behind this channel, and I will get into that in a little bit. For now, I'll just say that it basically came from a place many years ago. I had a very difficult and scary life experience, health-related life experience that really, it had a big impact on me, and getting through it, I learned a lot. And so that is kind of the high level view. I'll give you the details here in a little bit. But for now, I just wanted to have a little chat between you and I. I'll kind of maybe just fill you in on some of the, I don't know, some of the basic things, and where I'm at today and sort of what my life is like today. And we'll go from there. So let me just, I'm going to peek my notes here and there so I don't forget certain things that I want to say. But let's see. So I guess I can start with where I live. That seems like a good place to start, doesn't it? Where am I coming to you from? I'm actually in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm about an hour outside of Seattle. And I have lived here most of my life. I love it here, and it's truly beautiful. I don't know if you've ever been to Western Washington, of course, but if you haven't, you should. It's really worth seeing. Maybe come in the spring or the summer or the fall. The fall's really particularly beautiful, although not as much sun in the fall. But anyway. It's a fabulous place. I live with my husband, Dallas. We've been married 18 years, and our dog Charlie. And I'm a mom. I have one daughter. I'm a grandma. I have one grandson. I'm a sister. I have 3 brothers. And most of my family, they live a couple hours from us. So that is a really lucky thing, except for my mom, who is unfortunately in Oklahoma. But anyway, I do get to see her, quite a bit considering. What else? Well, I'm an animal lover. I love all the animals. Love all the animals. It doesn't matter if they're domesticated or they're wild animals. I love them all. And so, that's just a big part of who I am. And equally, I love nature. I love being outside. I want to be outside as much as I can be. I respect nature a tremendous amount, and I'm fascinated by it all the time. And I really do try to, over the years I've learned this, but I really do try to live in tune with nature as much as possible, which is hard in our modern world. I try to live by nature-inspired principles and that sort of thing. So, nature has a big impact on me. I'm very much into fitness. About 9 months ago, I got serious about getting in shape. In particular, I'm really heavily focused on strength training, and also certain types of cardio, hit and sit cardio and that sort of thing. But I did a couple videos about that if you're interested, if you haven't seen them. That is a big part of my life and my focus now, and will be for the rest of my life. That's just a really important thing, and I'm super passionate about it. I'm a crafty person. I am a crafty girl. I love to knit. I'm not great at it, but I've made some things, some hats and some socks and some scarves and, things like that, basic things. But I do love to knit. I don't do it as much as I'd like, but it's something I'll pick up for a while, then put it down, and then pick it back up, that sort of thing. And then I also love pottery. I've taken some pottery classes, and I really love to, I even out in my she shed, as my husband calls it, I have like a little setup out there where I can do some hand building with clay and stuff. So pottery is something I definitely want to do a lot more with down the road. I want to get a lot better at it and spend a lot more time doing it and all of that. But yeah, for now, I dabble, but it's fun. I really like it. Also I love puzzles. Puzzles. That's something I really didn't, I know I did puzzles as a kid, but that is something that I didn't really like get into until a few years ago. And I can't even now remember how that happened, but I just love them. And so I will sometimes set up my puzzle board, like, a big puzzle, like 500, 1,000 pieces. I know they come bigger than that, but that's big enough for me. And I will just chip away at it. So I'll do that from time to time, but I love that. Let's see. Well, some of my favorite things. This is just a few things, but so my favorite food. I mean, this is so common, but come on, it's coffee and chocolate. I mean, yeah. So enough said about that, right? My favorite music. I like all different kinds of music, quite a few different kinds of music, but I think my favorite, I have to think, must be like it's like classical jazz. I love jazz, and not as much like the modern smooth jazz, although some of that's okay, but like the classic jazz. Love it. I listen to it all the time. My favorite color is blue. There's so many different beautiful shades of blue that I couldn't pick a shade, but I do love the color blue a lot. In fact, I made it one of my brand colors here on Over 50 Wellness Hippie. So for TV, I I love sitcoms. I love it. Not all sitcoms, but I love a good sitcom. What can I say? I love to laugh. I love to have a good time. And, probably like Frasier is probably my all-time favorite sitcom, and Schitt's Creek is it's not a sitcom, but it was one of my favorite shows, But yeah, Frasier is probably my favorite sitcom of all time, although there's several others that are in my top 5 for sure. But I love a good sitcom, and totally polar opposite from that, I love a lot of period pieces like Downton Abbey, huge fan. Bridgerton, huge fan. So yeah, those are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, aren't they? Whoops, I think I just spit a little. Anyway, yeah, those are, yeah, I like that kind of stuff. So, and movies, I love movies. I just, nothing's better than just sitting back for like, half a day and watching a couple good movies, right? And having some yummy food and all of that. And I love to go to the movie theater too. And I know that's like a thing people don't do as much anymore, but I enjoy that. I don't do it nearly as much as I used to, but I do enjoy that an awful lot. The thing in the movies I like, again, I love comedies, and I love romantic comedies. I like other kinds of movies too, don't get me wrong, but those are probably what I watch the most. But they have to have some heart. You know what I mean? They can't just be silly with no heart. They got to have some heart, as far as I'm concerned. My favorite time of year is fall. And so we are just, we're in fall here. It's been really, 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 really extra rainy this last week here. But I love fall. I think it's gorgeous. And I'm not a real hot weather person. Warm weather's nice. Hot weather, not so much. I don't enjoy that. But so by the time summer ends here, because usually the tail end of summer gets hotter than I would prefer here in Western Washington. And by all means, that is not hot compared to many other places, of course, but I'm ready for the fall to come. I'm ready for some cooler weather. So I love that. And as far as my favorite content platform, I love podcasts. I'm a big podcast person. I have been for many years. So I listen to a lot of those, and I listen to business ones, and I listen to, funny ones. I listen to a lot of health related ones. I don't know. There's all different kinds. But of course, so I love podcasts, and of course I love YouTube. I watch YouTube all the time. In fact, I watch YouTube more than I watch TV shows or movies or any of it. It's not like I have a ton of time to watch, but that is almost always my first choice. So I guess it makes sense that now I'm here with a channel, right? So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell, a little bit about me. So let's see. Let me get into sort of the inspiration behind this channel, and what sort of led up to this. I've got to take you back in time, probably about 30 years. I don't know where the time goes. Like literally, where does the time go? Um, but basically, uh, around 30 years ago, I was just about 30 years old because I'm 59 now. Um, I I had been really healthy my whole life. I was very fortunate that way. I really didn't have any serious health problems growing up or anything like that. Um, and I was, I was a go, go, go type. I guess I still am, but I'm much more, I take much better care of myself now than I did back then. But anyways, I was 30 years old, or 29, somewhere in there. And my daughter was in grade school. I had my daughter quite young. I was 21 when she was born. So I was young. I was one of those old souls, that was kind of living many years ahead of my time. I'd have friends tell me that. And so anyways, that's a whole other story. But anyway, so she was in grade school. I was about 29 or 30. And I just went from feeling normal to, over the course of a week or two, feeling absolutely miserable and just exhausted and just kind of like, almost like maybe I had a flu, but I didn't have like a fever or the sick stomach or whatever. More just like, just, overall just miserable and exhausted. Um, and basically, I just thought it would pass, as we do, right? Thought it would pass, and ended up finally, after it didn't pass, after several weeks, going to a doctor, like a regular general doctor, primary care or whatever. And she didn't know. She couldn't put her finger on anything, and in fact, she almost made me feel like I was being dramatic or I was making it up. And I was like the furthest thing from that. I'm the person that's not going to go to a doctor, unless I really need to. And I don't tend to like complain about things much or anything like that. I didn't then either. And so it made me angry when she treated me that way. Maybe you can relate to that. I don't know. So I went to another doctor like a week or two later, and she also could not put her finger on what was wrong with me. And so she referred me to an internist. And so, thank goodness. So the internist, of course, did a lot of blood work, as an internist does. And basically, he said to me, well, I'm not sure if this is it, but it's obvious that you recently you've had mononucleosis recently, because they could tell by the elevated antibodies, right? When you recently have gone through something, or you're currently going through something, you have a real elevated amount of antibodies. So he said, that could be it. And I said, well, I don't even, because I hadn't felt, I didn't understand. I said, well, I haven't felt like I've had, because I had a picture in my mind of what somebody being sick with mono looked like, and I wasn't correct, but that's the picture. I said, I don't think that, I haven't had anything lately, that seems like it would be mono. And he said, here's the thing about mono, is he said, almost everybody contracts it at some point or another. A lot of people, it just comes and goes like a regular cold. It's no big deal. They wouldn't even question it. They don't go to the doctor for it. It just comes and goes. They know that they've had it years later because there's the antibodies in their blood, right? But it doesn't mean that they had any real sickness other than a regular type cold or something, or flu. And so he said, some people contract it and they get it and it's gone quickly, and they don't even know they had anything. Like, they don't even ever really feel sick. And then he said, and then there's about 1 in 10 people who get mono where it just knocks them flat out. And he said, and that happens. And basically sort of what you're dealing with. And he said, so that could be what's going on here. And I said, well, how long, what do I do? Like, what can we do to get me feeling better? And he said, the worst thing, well, there's nothing really that we can do. Your body just needs a chance to rebuild itself, rebuild the immune system. Usually what happens in this kind of a case is that the immune system gets just wiped out. And, so you have to get a lot of rest, and you have to take good care of yourself. And it could take months, or it could take 3 to 5 years to get back to normal. And when he said that, I about fell out of my chair, because here I am. I have a kid to raise. I have a full-time job. I can't afford to be out of, not work. It took everything in me to get out of bed in the morning, let alone go to work for the day and drag myself through the day. Perhaps, perhaps you experience this, or somebody who has, even for like a short time with a flu or something. Then to come home, make dinner, make sure my daughter was taken care of, and take care of a house and do the things. It was absolutely miserable. And every day I just lay there in the morning and think, how am I gonna? I've got to do this. Like I've got to make this happen. And I just dreaded having to try to get through the day. And this went on for months and months. And so by the time I had gotten to this doctor, it had already been, I think, a month and a half or 2 months of feeling this way. And so, yeah, and then to think that I was going to go through many, many more months like that, and there's nothing you can do. So I left that office upset, obviously, upset. And yeah, so basically I went home and I thought, well, I can't just do nothing. I've got to figure out something here. And so basically, to make a long story short, I decided that I was going to try to learn as much as I can. Now, keep in mind, this was before we had the internet at our fingertips and we could find anything we wanted. This was, if you wanted information, you went to buy books or you went to a library or something, right? So I decided I was going to try to get a book or books on how to, like, help rebuild my immune system, because the doctor made it sound like that's what you need to do. Because what happens is when your immune system's knocked out like that, you can catch everything that comes along. Plus, I was dealing with basically like chronic fatigue, even though it wasn't, it was because of this particular situation. It wasn't a standalone type thing. But anyways, I just had to figure something out. So I went to a bookstore. I hauled my tired butt to a bookstore and went to the health section or whatever. And I knew nothing about, I did know, I remember we had, my father's friend had had a Crohn's or some sort of illness. And I remember hearing about him having a lot of luck with a naturopathic doctor. And I knew nothing about any of that. But other than hearing that story and thinking, wow, that's fantastic. Like they were able to help him, and help him help himself, as opposed to a regular doctor wasn't, as helpful in that particular case. And so I went, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for natural medicine, naturopaths, anything about immune system. Anyway, I finally found a book that caught my eye called Spontaneous Healing by Dr. Andrew Weil. I didn't know who he was. He turns out he's a pretty big deal in the natural medicine space. And so I took that book home and I read that thing from cover to cover as fast as I could and learned as much as I could. And in that book, like a light bulb went off for me, and also all of a sudden I had some hope. I had real hope. Like I can have a real hand in fixing this and how fast it goes. And, yeah, I just, after a long time of just feeling like, what am I going to do? And it was scary because I didn't know. I mean, I felt so miserable. I had all these responsibilities. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to get better. And it was scary, but this book gave me hope. It made me feel empowered. Like there's things I can do to help help support my body and speed things along. So I believe in that book he talked about, or maybe it was just because I remember the family friend having worked with a naturopath. The next thing I did was I immediately went to work trying to figure out who I could go see in terms of a naturopath. And, insurance didn't cover it and things like that. So I was concerned about the cost, but when I started doing, and I don't even remember how I did this homework because, of course, again, the internet was not, a thing that we all used in a day-to-day basis then, but somehow or another, I started looking for naturopathic doctors in Seattle. And so, but I learned about, on that search, I learned about the clinic, there was a clinic in Seattle, and it was tied to Bastyr University, which is a well-known, I didn't know at the time, but it's a very well-known university in the US that where people train to go and train to be naturopathic doctors. And it's a very, very highly accredited school. So anyways, they had a clinic, and that clinic, because it was working with like their students that were getting ready to graduate, like their 5th year students, and they were under the guidance of MDs and all of that, they basically, they had a sliding scale, so it was based on your income. So that's where I went. And long story short, that was a very interesting experience. That doctor's appointment was like nothing I had ever experienced before, in a good way, in a really, really good way. And so, so they checked me over in the way that they do, which is, again, I did a podcast episode about this. I will link to it below this video, because I did do a podcast a few years ago for about a year called Thrive Sister Thrive. I did an episode on this. So if you want to hear the details of all that, I'll put it in the link or in the description below. But anyway, so they went to work on me and figured out what to do next, and got me going with a few things, including one of the things was Chinese herbal medicine, which I don't know if you know what that is, but that is a whole thing unto itself, a very unique experience. Again, I talk about it more in the podcast, but they got me going on some different things with diet and supplements and Chinese herbal medicine and various things along those lines. And you know what? Day by day, week by week, month by month, I got better. It was not fast. It was not overnight, but it was progress that I could see, week over week, which again, just builds up that hope factor, right? Hope is so powerful, right? It's so important. And so, I just stuck with that. And I would say about 18 months down the road or so from the time that I originally started feeling really ill, I was back to my former self. So that was a whole lot better than 3 to 5 years, right? And I had, during that time, learned of a different family friend their son had gotten mono. I think he was in college when he got it, maybe. And he was going through the same thing, or had gone through the same thing several years prior. And he was really not himself for like 3 years. So it is a thing. It is not the typical person who gets mono, but lucky me, I was just one of the lucky 1 in 10 or whatever it is that really gets knocked out by that whole thing. But you know what? I learned so much through that process of working with naturopathic doctors, reading Dr. Wild's book, and everything else that I could get my hands on during that time and since then. It was just incredible. And so while I, of course, do realize and certainly respect the fact that conventional medicine has a huge, important role in our lives, honestly, it was, it was natural medicine that has just had such has made such an impact. And had such profound impact on my life and how I've lived how I've lived it ever since that whole thing happened almost 30 years ago. I have made a point to learn more and more and more about natural medicine, natural healing techniques, and that sort of thing, and also just how to support my body naturally to just build it stronger, right? So that because I'm all about prevention after all, hopefully not getting to a point, helping my body be strong enough and well balanced enough, and all of those things on a regular basis that I don't have to deal with, something like that again, or some other thing. None of us are bulletproof, right? But we do what we can to try to build our bodies stronger and just support them. And so I've just learned a ton, and I've done a lot of different things, and I'm just always learning, and I will always continue to. But it's a very empowering way to move through life. I will say that. Let's see. Well, what else? So basically, the long and the short of it is that experience all those years ago is what, and everything I've learned since then is what informs the content that is on my channel now and will be on my channel in the future. It is, in fact, the categories, I guess, in case you haven't seen many of my other videos or any maybe, the categories that most of my content will fall into is things like natural remedies and healing techniques, like what I was talking about, but also other types of natural and holistic self-care. Again, self-care being all about the being preventative, right? And also about just helping us feel better on a day-to-day, from day to day, just to feel better so we can enjoy life more. And then also that puts us in a position, hopefully, where we have less health issues down the road and that sort of thing. So, all different kinds of natural and holistic self-care. Also fitness-related content, because as I mentioned, I'm very passionate about strength training and also certain types of cardio and just fitness in general, but those are what I'll pretty much be focusing my content on, and it'll be just mixed in with all my other content. I'm not going to go too heavy in any one direction. I want to have a nice mix, and I'm not going to show people how to exercise. It's more about me just sharing the journey, of what it's like to be doing it, to be strength training regularly, lifting heavy, doing advanced cardio type workouts. And so I'm not going to teach people how to do them, but I will share the experience, and hopefully that will be helpful to people too. Of course, some of my content's menopause related, because that's what we're going through in life, right? That's where we're at, and so some of it will be related to that specifically. Another thing I'm real passionate about and will share about is whole food, plant-based eating. I've been doing that for, I don't know, 13 years now, I think, maybe. And it's something I just love and I'm passionate about. So I'll share some of that from time to time. Energy medicine, that's a whole thing that's quite, a lot of people are unfamiliar with. And you can think along the lines of, you've probably heard of Reiki. Sort of along those lines, but not exactly that. I'll share a little bit of content here and there about that. I'm a big fan of it, and have practiced a certain, not in depth, but practiced a certain amount of energy medicine type, exercises, for lack of a better word. I don't even think that's the right word, but just energy medicine practices and that sort of thing. So I'll probably share a little bit about that from time to time, and just some things like maybe a little bit of biohacking here and there, a little bit of healthy home type stuff. So really kind of a mix of things that are related to self-care, and natural self-care. And basically everything I do, everything I post here on this channel, with the exception of this one, which is really just more of a get to know me type video, everything else really I run through, before I even make the content, I run it through this filter that is like, will this content actually be helpful to somebody in some way? And if the answer is yes, then I will make the content. If the answer is probably not, then even if I want to make the content, I won't make the content, because to me, that's just important. It takes a lot of time and effort to be here on YouTube and to create videos and that sort of thing. And so for me, if I'm going to put in that kind of effort, I just feel like there has to be a lot of purpose behind it. And the purpose for me is to share my experiences. I'm not trying to tell anybody else what they should do. I'm just sharing my experiences, and I hope that is helpful to someone, whether it's through enlightenment or inspiration or empowerment or whatever kind of help it is. That's the goal. And that's really, that's really my whole purpose for being here. And also I am a creative at heart. I love to create things. I love making something from nothing. I have for a very long time, well, as long as I can remember. So YouTube is a great outlet for that. And so if you are also a creative, you may want to, you know, you may want to think about that a little bit. And lastly, but certainly not least, I think that this is a great platform to build community on. And I would love to build a community of women, of kind, um, engaged women over 50, where we can just share with each other and learn from each other. I think that is incredibly powerful, and I think we're all more powerful for it when we do that. And so I'm hoping that this will be a good place to do that. It typically is. Certainly, I've seen other creators do that, and so I'm hoping that that's what happens here as well. And I encourage feedback and conversation from anyone, as so long as, of course, they're respectful and it comes from a good place. But yeah, I think that that's a really powerful thing that can happen on YouTube. So yeah, I guess that's kind of it in a nutshell. If any of this resonates with you and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you'll subscribe, or at least come back weekly and hang out with me. My goal is to get one video up per week. Sometimes it could be two. Sometimes it might be one every 10 days, but the goal is basically once a week. So that's what I'm shooting for. But anyway, I appreciate you being here now. And if you have any questions, if any of this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your comments below. If you have any questions, drop your comments below. And other than that, I will be seeing you soon. All right, have a good day.